A couple of days ago, I was reading about a story, an incident that took place in Ohio. Maybe some of you saw this. A 41-year-old man witnessed an absolutely awful accident involving two teenage boys that left them critically injured. They had hit railroad tracks at a very high speed, and their car flipped over and crashed. Instead of rushing to their aid, this gentleman recorded the aftermath on his smartphone. He made comments throughout the entire recording, berating these boys for their recklessness and speed, never once offering any comfort or care to these critically injured kids. At one point, he actually opens up the door, not to help, but to get a close-up of their injuries. And according to this article that I read, on this recording you can hear them moaning, and you can hear him continuing to berate them in judgment. Finally, other people arrive and they offer aid, they help, they do all that they can to make sure that these two boys get the best care until the EMTs arrive. Unfortunately, one of the boys dies that night in the hospital. Now, this man posted his video on Facebook, and when he was confronted by reporters, he said to them, "I was doing a public service to all those teenagers so that they would drive more carefully." Nice rationalization. Now, as a high school teacher and as a human being, I'm absolutely appalled by what this man did. I think every single one of us has a duty to each other, and adults, I think we have a special duty to our children to care, to comfort, not to belittle, not to judge. We're called to be good shepherds, guarding and guiding every single person we encounter. And this man abdicated his role. He was the bad shepherd that Jeremiah talked about in that first reading. You see, Jeremiah is speaking for God and judging all those bad shepherds, people who had led the people away, leaders who had done a terrible job of leading. And what God does is He promises new leaders, people who will shepherd His people. And of course, we know that He's speaking specifically about His Son, Jesus, who will come to be that good shepherd. This is what Jesus demonstrated in the gospel today. His heart was moved with pity, for He looked out on the crowd and He was moved. His heart was moved. Unlike this gentleman, His heart was moved with compassion. You see, Jesus' overall mission is the cross. It's the sacrifice. It's the forgiveness of sin. But on that road of His mission, it didn't prevent Him from helping and caring and showing concern. Next week, this gospel continues with the feeding of the 5,000, the feeding of the multitude. Jesus responds to the need. He is the good shepherd. Teaching is only part of it. The cross is only part of it. A major part of it is to show God's unconditional compassion and care. He's not just focused on our spiritual needs, He's focused on our physical needs as well. He cured the sick, He raised people to new life. He's aware of our limitations, He's aware of our sufferings and sorrows because He experienced them Himself. He knew those things in His body and in His being. He felt fatigue and hunger, and He recognized it in the crowd and in His own apostles. His awareness leads to action. Now, my brothers and sisters, this is also our call. We are all called to be good shepherds to those around us, the poor, the powerless, the young and old, the lost and lonely. Our task is not so much about telling people rules and laws and being theologians. It's more about being compassionate, concerned human beings brothers and sisters to all around us. And you're doing it already. Parents and grandparents, I see you do this all the time. You're being good shepherds to members of your families. Today, just as we were watching the children process out, Olivia was carrying the book. Her sister Ellie came up beside her. And Olivia reached down because Ellie was reaching for the book. She hands the book to Ellie and walks out with her, 4-year-old Ellie carrying that book that Olivia gives to her. You've raised a good daughter. And Will, you've been a good big brother. And Olivia is becoming a good shepherd. That's what we're all called to be. I look over at Jesse, and Jesse, with a group of volunteers, did a beautiful job with Vacation Bible School. I see people who are part of Vincent de Paul. I see people who work in social justice in that ministry. I look out and I see people who are involved in the Knights of Columbus who work so hard during the For Us program. Kevin Lovejoy's daughter, Sarah, is currently spending 2 years in Africa doing volunteer work. Good shepherds. It's all that simple. It's allowing our hearts to be moved to the needs of people around us and responding to those needs as Christ did. You see, when we do this, we become Christ to them, and what is amazing is they become Christ to us. That's what it's all about. The call to be good shepherds, to love unconditionally. We don't have to be catechists or theologians. We just have to be human beings who respond with our whole hearts, as Christ did, to feed the hungry, to clothe the naked, to shelter the homeless, to reach out to people who are struggling in prison, strangers in our midst. That's how we are good shepherds. You know that gentleman I talked about in the beginning of this homily? He's just going to be a footnote in the book of idiocy. But all of you, you are going to be chapter after chapter after chapter in the book of life. There's a legacy that you leave behind in your children, your brothers and sisters, your friends, your co-workers, and the people of this world who need your love, who need your shepherding. Because this world is filled with lost sheep who need a few good shepherds. And I want to thank you, each and every one, for responding as good shepherds with such grace and joy and love and laughter and life. That's what it means to be church. That's what it means to be Christ and the body of Christ. So I say once more, go church.